Yo, what's good? My name's Kangla Kangaroo. I'm a Canadian that's currently living and working in Seattle as a software engineer, and in this video, I'm going to be going over some resumes, so hopefully you can land that internship or job. And if you want to get your resume reviewed by me, stick around to the end so you can figure out how to do that. So I watched this great video by Jerry Lee where he essentially is using an eye tracker to look at where recruiters are looking when they review a resume. This is a really great video. I really recommend checking it out, but there are two major takeaways that I took away from this video, and that kind of inspired me to make this one. So number one, recruiters are really only going to spend like 7 seconds, 10 seconds looking at your resume. And number two, resumes are going to scan your resume in an F pattern. So just as an experiment, I'm going to flash my own resume on screen for like 7 seconds. And what I want you to do is take note of the things that you notice and the things that you look at during the 7 seconds. Now, when you looked at it, you probably looked at it from the top to the bottom and also drew it in that F pattern. And intuitively, that makes sense. It's because that's how we read the English language, top to bottom, left to right. So in my opinion, you should be really putting the most important things or things that you want to communicate most to the hiring manager or the recruiter at the top and to the left. And to better showcase this, we're actually going to review my own resume from when I was applying for my first engineering internship back in 2019. So first things first, I have the work experience. My uncle got me an interview at Glad Clorox. They make cleaning supplies, like cling wrap, Clorox bags, whatever. Now, if I didn't have that experience working at Clorox, or maybe I worked at Wendy's, or like I was a camp counselor or something, maybe I would not have put my work experience at the top, and maybe I would have moved it down to like the bottom or something like that, so they could highlight my projects and my extracurriculars. Now, another key point that I want to mention is that I put my education at the bottom. Now, I went to McMaster University, which is a pretty small school, and in comparison to the other local universities, it's pretty good. So in my mind, it didn't really make sense to highlight the fact that I went to Mac. I was applying to American internships as well with this resume, which, they don't know what Mac is, they don't care. I also put my relevant courses here, which looking back, I probably would not have done now if I were to remake my resume. And on top of that, I didn't put my GPA because my GPA was terrible. Now, another thing I want to mention now we're down here is like the interest section. I think this is stupid. I don't know why I did it, and I don't know how I got a resume with that, but going forward, I would definitely not put that in. Also, this whole entire thing on the side, it's just silly to me. I would not have done that. So definitely no interest, get rid of that. And for the skills section, I probably would end up putting it right here above the education, but after the projects. Now, going back to the top, we can look at my work experience. Even the points that I put down, I think they're pretty good. Looking back, it follows the STAR method, which I think is very important. And STAR stands for situation, task, action, and then result. But in my opinion, the AR, or the action and the result portion of the STAR method, is more important than the situation or the task that you did. So in my situation, this result is reducing the reoccurring cost by 3%. And I think what's good about this is that I'm showing what I personally did and the result that it gave. And now if the STAR method is confusing to you, another way that you could look at it is the XYZ method. And a way to look at this is I accomplished X by measurement Y by doing Z. And if you don't have a metric for your actual resume point, I think that's fine. But if you can come up with a metric or find a metric, I think it's going to be very useful for showcasing how you delivered impact for whatever role that you are in. I also think it's okay to embellish a little bit, but not lie on your resume. Like if you're stat padding a bit, I don't think that's a big issue. Now, another thing that I did for my specific bullet points that I think was good was actually highlighting and bolding certain portions of the resume in order to make it pop out. So say, for example, this 5% here, I bolded that so it catches your eye and you're like, okay, what did I do a 5% drop in? Drop in temperature, blah, blah, blah. And similarly here, I bolded AutoCAD because that was the main thing that I was using at work. And if we go down to the projects and extracurricular section, you can see I kind of do the same thing where I do that bolding for this Node, this Arduino, Python, blah, 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 blah. Now, another quick note that I want to make on projects is I think a lot of people can tell when, you're just following a tutorial and making like some web app clone or whatever, right? Like a Twitter clone. And I do think that this is a good starting point if you have nothing. At some point, I think you have to differentiate yourself from all the other people who have done the exact same thing. Now, I'm not going to say that my projects were good, but the competition that I had when I was applying is much different from the competition right now, because the competition right now is a lot worse. Another thing I want to note is that these redacted parts are actually links to the project that I worked on or the GitHub page that is hosted on or like my website or whatever. So I think the main takeaways that I can get from looking at my past resume is that you should really take advantage of the F method that Jerry had pointed out in his video, which is basically put all the important things to the top and to the left and in the order that you want the recruiter to read it in. Now, the second thing that I want to point out is that if you don't have great work experience, I think you should really focus on projects in order to get that X factor that's going to put you over the edge for someone else. So we looked at a resume that's pretty early on in the cycle, like what I used to get my first engineering internship. But what about someone who's like further along, maybe that they're finished their undergrad and they are now applying to a full-time job? Now, I actually don't have one of those resumes because I accepted a full-time offer from one of my internships, but my friend who didn't do a return offer from one of his internships very graciously sent me over his resume to to review. And obviously I've redacted a lot of information, but right now we'll call him Mr. Handsome. So first and foremost, I really like the format or the layout of Mr. Handsome's resume. This is a lot closer to what mine looks like right now, and it's a lot more simple and a lot more clean than what I previously had. Now, if you stick to the same principle, that F principle that I was talking about earlier, where you like look to the top and then bottom, we can see that the first thing that he's showcasing is education, which I kind of don't agree with. I think that that should be moved to the bottom. So the first thing that I would do is actually move this education all the way to the bottom down here. He also listed a bunch of clubs here, which I think is good, but at this point he has so much work experience that I probably would have, axed all of these and then expanded on some of these points that he has in his work experience or some of the projects that he had, because I'm sure that he could have talked a little bit more, and that's more helpful than, expanding on like programming competition coordinator, blah, 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 blah. No offense, buddy. Having previous work experience at internships is so important, because a lot of people are not going to have that or have little experience in comparison to what you could have. So with that in mind, I would actually put experience all the way at the top and be the first thing that he showcases. And then obviously this experience is in chronological order, which makes complete sense. Now I actually want to zoom into the points that he actually has here. So for example, it says worked in agile environment with daily stand-ups and bi-weekly retrospectives and demos. And then his second point is developed a data archiving service that helps increase storage and efficiency of important databases by 20% using Java, Spring Boot, and Git. So in my opinion, if I'm reading this top down, the second point is way more important than the first point. Like, why is working in an agile environment more important than the actual work that you did? So in my opinion, I would switch these two, or actually I would put this one all the way to the bottom, and then I would put this one to the top. And then specifically about the points themselves, if we look at the STAR method, this is more of a situational thing and a task thing, and in reality this is like the result and the action, right? In my opinion, I think the result and the action is more important than the situation and the task, so I would put that first. And it's kind of the same thing when we look at the XYZ method as well. So the way that I would probably reframe this point and suggest reframing this would be increase storage and efficiency of important databases by 20% by developing a data archiving service using Java, Spring Boot, and Git. Now, what I do like about his resume as well is that he's bolded a lot of the important things that recruiters would look out for and all the skills that they would look out for. So for example, AWS is bolded, and then S3. And I think the points that I list out in this software engineering role in the bank could be applied for the other internships that he has as well, where he could, move around the points a little bit and then restructure them a little bit. Now going down, we have his projects, which in my opinion is now not that important, since you have essentially 16 months worth of internships here. Like if you look at the times, it's 16 months of internships that he has. So the projects are much less important at this point. If you had more internships and you could expand more on the internships, I would actually remove a project to keep expanding on those internships, if that makes sense. Looking at his projects, these looks like things that he actually thought about creating and things that would be, useful that he can actually talk about rather than doing some kind of tutorial. Okay, like what did this person have to do? How did he manage the project? How did he go through the thought process and like measure the trade-offs? And then we go to his technical skill section, which is pretty good. One thing I would say is that like I would put the things that you were best at or the things that you would want the recruiter to see the most at the front. So like again, like Java, you maybe want to put first, Python, maybe you want to put first. And also on that note, like for this tools and technologies line, I probably would remove like VS Code, IntelliJ, and then Eclipse. Like, why does it matter that you know how to do that stuff? Like Jira, like why does that matter? No offense. But I would remove that and then use that extra space and the extra space from the clubs, from the schools, and expand on a lot of the points that you have in order to make it a little bit more full-fledged. Now, another note that I want to make is that if you're a recent grad looking for a job right now, this is the kind of resume that you are competing against. No offense to my friend, like I think him and like a lot of the friends that I had in university were above average for sure for a cohort in terms of resumes, getting jobs, etc. But his resume really does not compare to, a super high achieving resume of someone who had like back-to-back internships at Google, Microsoft, Facebook, all of that, right? Like his resume is not that special, but at the same time, he has 16 months worth of internships, which is a lot. And again, no offense to him because my resume at the time was not much better than this at all, but he still has 16 months worth of internships, which is very significant. Now, if you're Canadian, I think this is actually pretty common for a lot of people to take a year off of their studies to go do internships and gain that work experience. So you actually might have an edge over a lot of American students right now. Now, I've talked to a lot of coworkers at work, and it looks like Americans who, get full-time jobs only really do 1, maybe 2 internships, 3 internships, but not to the extent of doing like 16 months worth of internships. And on top of that, American internships are a lot shorter than Canadians. They're 3 months, and Canadian internships are usually 4 months. So if you're Canadian in school that is currently doing internships, I think that you have a unique opportunity where you can get a leg up on our American friends and actually get more experience, which I think a lot of employers value a lot more than having clout from a specific school. So I think that's definitely something important to keep in mind. Now, overall, I think his resume is pretty good, definitely better than the one that I had previously shown, which was my resume. Now, I'm not going to review a resume of, having a job and then getting your second or your third job, because I don't have experience doing that. And I think that there are creators out there that can probably do a better job of doing that anyway. And I think in that situation, maybe you would actually want to put your skills first, because it kind of shows like professional summary without actually saying professional summary. It shows you what you're good at and what things that you're focused on, followed by your work experience and then education, etc. But I don't know. I would have to do a little bit more research on that, because again, I'm not in that position. Now, another quick note that I want to make is like the current optics of the job market. And right now it looks pretty bad, especially for people who are juniors or like their first job that they're going to get, or even for internships. I mean, if you just go on like the CS majors subreddit or the CS career questions subreddit, you can see all the doom and gloom in those subreddits. It's constantly just bad vibes all around. So when I got my internships and my full-time offer, and when even my friend got his internships and his full-time offer, it was a completely different landscape than it is right now. So the advice that I have and the opinions I have on like resumes might not actually hold true anymore, because the landscape has shifted so much and it is so much more competitive right now. So take what I say with a grain of salt and like really do your own research. Don't listen to only what one person has to say. Watch multiple videos, read multiple resources, and don't follow one, school of thought. Like there are definitely a lot of opinions out there. And another anecdote that I have is I have a lot of friends that are involved in the current process of hiring right now. Like they're in the interview loops, they're doing resume reviews and like looking at resumes for potential candidates. And from what I heard from them, it's like super competitive right now. A lot of my friends are saying that these resumes that they're getting are way better than the resumes that they had, and they probably would not be getting interviews if they had started interviewing right now. So I'm only saying this to stress that the market has changed and there's a lot of luck involved in getting these job opportunities. So I guess all you can really do is keep applying and just pray that you get lucky. And for some reason, if you want me to review your resume, here's how you can get it to me. I recently crossed 1K subs, and I'm really appreciative of all the love and support that I've been getting recently on my videos. And there are a lot of day ones that have been there, so I really appreciate every one of you for liking, watching, subscribing, etc. Between people reaching out for me for resume advice, just wanting to chat, or like questions about immigration or whatever, like I feel like there should be some kind of centralized community where we can talk about this and share ideas, because I know that there's people out there that are just like me, and we can all help each other out. And if you want to get your resume reviewed, I'll review like the first 5 resumes that I get sent on Discord. So join the Discord, send me your resume, I'll review it. And if you have any questions or suggestions for the Discord, or just in general, please feel free to let me know. More than happy to accommodate that or help out with that. Now, like I said a little bit earlier, a lot of job searching and applying to jobs has to do with luck. And if you're interested in seeing how lucky I was throughout my career, you can watch this video right here where I go over my career progression so far.